welcome to another episode of VNture podcast, your weekly source of visual novel goodness. I am Amar, and together with Tauros, we shall venture into another discussion about VNs. Today we have an unusual Readport, because for once I've synchronized with Tauros on reading a VN, and we can both talk about it in this episode. Isn't that something? So tell me, Tauros, what did you like about Evenical?
Not so fast. It was not Evenical. It's going to be a while before if that ever happens. But rather, we both checked out the same visual novel this month, Man Demon. It's an indie Chinese original title that was actually brought to my attention by Ads, who just put out a video of it a few weeks ago. So shout out to him. Thanks for sharing the hidden gem here in Man Demon. So, MR, do you want to start off describing it to everyone?
It's an interesting title because it starts very unsettlingly. And maybe it's kind of typical for anime. You start from the guise of a protagonist who suffers from amnesia. You wake up in a cabin, much to your surprise, by some bully. And you are, as a typical school anime boy, you start by going to the field, collecting and growing food? What is happening? Like, the setting itself, from the very get-go, when you wake up, is so eerie, so different from a typical high school setting. And it has that air of it, of the mysterious. And everybody around you acts like this is a normal occurrence. Like, yeah, that's how always it was supposed to be. So you are thrown in this world, a warped reality in which something unnormal is normalized. And holy hell, that's a good hook. I have to say, that's a very good hook.
Yes, the main character is a typical high school boy. He wakes up with amnesia, like you said, so he doesn't have any recollection of the past. But what makes things different, what makes this a lot more interesting than other titles of the amnesic hero, is that this guy wakes up apparently in a post-war ruined Japan. There is rubble all around him. His high school class apparently spends their day trekking down to the fields, growing crops and backbreaking work, and then coming back, home to their dorms in a very rustic, simple life. And one reason why I think this works so well with this amnesia is that the reader is thrust into the same unfamiliar circumstances as him. It's one thing for the main character to have amnesia, and it's a normal world, and it's just him getting used to all the new characters, and, hey, buddy, I've been your friend forever. All of that stuff you usually see in anime tropes.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's practically an alien world. The main character also has this kind of lingering sense that something isn't right here. And it combines with the reader wondering, what the heck kind of world have I woken up into? That really ties it all together. Man Demon has a lot of style going for it, and this is just one of the examples, honestly.
And I wanted to also highlight one more thing from the opening act that isn't typical in an amnesia start and setting. Because with the typical amnesia setting, it's like everybody's like, oh no, you got amnesia, that's so unexpected. But here, you get another wrench thrown in. Everybody expects you to have amnesia. I was like, wait, that's not how it typically goes. What's going on?
Apparently, this poor guy's got a recurring amnesia problem.
Oh. All of those combined, it was such a immediate hook. I just couldn't leave that VN until I reached an ending.
How?
It got me hooked immediately.
Mm-hmm. I know. I like how you mentioned the wrench in the plans of what you expected, because there's another element of that. Mandemon overall is a mystery. It's part of the mystery genre. However, it's not like there's a central question like a who done it, like oh, who murdered Mr. Body in the dining room sort of question. Rather, it's a mystery where you're trying to come to grips to what the story is trying to tell you. At first, you wake up and it's in the rustic post-war Japan, and it's very strange, but you slowly come to terms with it, and when you think you've settled in, the story throws a huge curveball. And this is something that uproots your entire understanding of the VN so far, and then it takes you a while again to get accustomed, to put yourself in the right frame of mind as the plot has now stumbled into a new direction. And once again, you think you're familiar, and boom, you get the rug pulled out from under you. Things are completely different. You have to adjust yet again. Mandemon keeps you on your toes pretty often. I don't know. I don't know if it's due to Mandemon being a relatively short VN, but it's the sort of pacing, the sort of unease that just keeps you on your toes often.
I think I like how you said that it keeps you on the toes and flips the script, because all the foreboding atmosphere makes you tense, because you anticipate, okay, surely soon they'll explain things. Okay, surely, and you slowly get used to that. Yeah, in this school, your classes are you go to the field and you manage your crops. Like that's not a class you should attend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in this school, after you graduate, you go to the front line to fight in the war. Like, okay, surely next day they'll explain everything, and you kick the can later and later, and like. Slowly get used to that, and then you get a nice twist. And then you get used to the twist, and then you get another one. Like, what is going on?
I like how you mentioned how the atmosphere is very tense. There's a scene relatively early on where the setting, you're by a creek, and there's a lot of greenery, and it's bright, and it's cheery, and it's happy. And I remember sitting in my chair reading this VN, I could breathe. I could take the load off and just let out the breath I didn't realize I was holding for all this time so far when reading Mandemon.
Yep.
And
I feel like just because those moments are far and few between, whenever you got that sigh of relief, it means so much more in this title.
There's another aspect about Mandemon I want to mention. Its soundtrack. It's pretty unique in that like half of its soundtrack are famous classical musical pieces, like Moonlight Sonata. Most other visual novels will have famous classical tracks, like Clair de la Lune, and they usually just have it in for like 1 2-minute scene. Like it's practically a meme for some tracks, for the VN to start acting all philosophical as a shot of like the night sky or whatever. And then the visual novel's like, okay, we're done with that, back to our normal mood and stuff. But not in Mandemon. This VN really incorporates these tracks like an actual element of its OST. You have one character who has an orchestral classical piece as her theme, and it fits with her. It fits with her attitude, it fits with her goals and approach to matters, and it always sets you in the right mood for whenever that character appears on screen. It's a small appreciation, like you noticed that too, am I right?
Yeah. I mean, to even add on to that, what you just said, the fact that at certain points, and I don't want to spoil it obviously, but the music plays a role in the story itself I really love that aspect. And it wouldn't be my talk about the VM that has a glossary that I haven't been lost in. Okay? After one round, I opened the glossary. I think it was like bonus or special in the options. And I see Sergei Rachmaninoff. And I'm like, okay. I know that my next 1 hour will be behind one monitor will have Wikipedia. I'm Googling, and the other I'm reading that one special glossary.
Because I don't think that's really a glossary, right? It was just a timeline of a famous composer's life and his notable works and stuff. Right?
Yes, exactly.
It didn't have any bearing on the main story or the rest of the visual novel. It's just this developer just really wanted to share his school presentation about this famous guy.
Yep. And I obviously had to read it because surely there might be some clues to the story there. So I spent a lot of time reading that. Oh man.
There's another thing.
Okay, I had to check it.
Wait, what? What are you checking?
No, I had to check that glossary, okay? It's just...
Yeah. I see. I do want to say another thing about how well Man Demon incorporates the classical pieces. One of the songs is Amazing Grace. And it's a very bombastic, heroic piece with the trumpets blaring. And one of the most impressive things about this VN, in my eyes, is how well it incorporates Amazing Grace. Because many other VNs would use this as typically intended. It's, the big old heroic, we did it song, you'd play that over some victory or whatnot. However, Man Demon saves this song for a few specific parts of the visual novel. A few story beats that play into the main character's confusion. There's all sorts of wanton violence going on. The main character is very lost. He's confused. He's, mentally disgusted at how things have led to this and how he's the only sane person in a mad world. And then you've got these heroic trumpets on full blast as other characters are happy with the scenario. It's such a disconnect because you can read the words and you can feel the main character's thoughts about just the disgust at how things have turned out. And then you have all the other characters around him who are content, who are maybe even happy with how things are being played out. And the music is obviously taking the side of this mad world around him.
Yeah, and it plays into the theme of all the other characters that aren't protagonists act like, yeah, this is normal. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, and you as a reader, together with protagonists, feel like that's something not quite right here.
No, things are very wrong. And yet everyone is telling him that, this is for the best. Speaking of which, I really like the main character. The main character is a total wimp. Like, he's a pushover, he's weak,
True.
He has, no real spine. And he gets treated appropriately by several other characters. However, I felt it tied very well into the story. Because of the whole amnesia bit, he doesn't know anything. He has to rely on other people for information and for context and whatnot. And it never crosses his mind, really, that people might be using him. Because he's such a wimp, pretty much, he just takes things at face value. And so when things start getting confusing, when the plot starts getting multi-layered, he, as a character, is very lost throughout this. And considering that us, the readers, are following along in his thoughts and through his point of view, the script and the atmosphere and the meaning getting conveyed to us are all in line with us being lost and confused as well. Again, I think it's another thing that Man Demon does very well in conveying to the reader.
True. Especially that part about trust being imprinted upon him because he has no amnesia, so he has to trust at face value, which can be used against him, right? I followed that train of thought by inverting it. So the first route I went blind is, okay, if that can be weaponized, amnesia, right? So you are amnesiac, someone tells you, I was your friend all the time, you can trust me, and maliciously they benefit out of you. So what if you may appear amnesiac, but you actually are in control? And there are choices that allow you to do that, allow you to lie under the guise, yeah, I'm amnesiac, I don't know what is happening. But underneath it all, you can make choices to navigate through this ordeal in a sneaky way.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there are choices in this VN. There's lots of choices, actually. And
Oh my god, there's so many.
multiple endings, some of which are locked off, some of which are locked off until you get specific endings. I mentioned a while ago in like my dream VN that it'd be a mystery with choices. And I'm like, oh boy, mystery and choices. I'm about to dive in.
Yep, it has very nice and comprehensive flowchart. I really like that one. Although one criticism I will inherit from the ads video that you quoted before is, yeah, I would like to have that flowchart filled in some way instead of just presented the current iteration.
Yeah, it's another problem I had with the flowchart is that it would automatically display when you press the pause menu. And there were times it's like, what the heck? I don't want to see the flowchart. That's kind of spoiling me on the structure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, or when you wanted to do a manual save, and you enter the pause menu, and you're like, oh my god, I didn't want to say that this time. I wanted to just save on this on the choices. Come on.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I felt the same thing.
So Man Demon isn't perfect. Are there any other flaws you had with it, MR?
Well, I feel like, I mean, I didn't came prepared with many flaws. If anything, there is, how can I say it the best? Like, again, I'm trying to not breach any spoilers whatsoever, okay? So, right? There is a very curious approach to the setting, right? Because you have a setting that we established. There is a not so hospitable school that fosters a sort of divide in the community of that school. And I felt like that one aspect could be a little bit more explored. There are some certain gripes I have that they didn't go deep enough into that division, okay? So again, but I'm very careful not to say too much. But it tells that in process of solving the current happenstance that's going on in the story, you are presented with multiple choices of what could have happened, what led to what else, and just by the process of elimination, I got exactly the thing to be revealed. I'm like, I mean, because there's not much else. So just by process of elimination, I just figured out, okay, the rest doesn't really make sense. So it has to be that. And it just so happened that it was that.
And Mars bragging that he solved the mystery easy peasy.
No.
I do agree.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. I do agree with you, though, is that there's one story element, I guess one plot arc you could say, that is very bare bones. And you know, there's that old writing device of show, don't tell.
Yes.
It really would have helped if it had more examples or more plot beats to flesh it out, instead of just kind of having to take the VN's word at it. But Man Demon is a very short VN. It's only like 3 hours total. It's very cheap, so it's one of those things I'm willing to cut it some slack. I really wish it was something longer, like maybe a medium length, like 10 hours or so. But on the other hand, is it better to have a short VN that leaves you wanting more, or a medium length VN where you really just want it to end? Pick your poison,
exactly.
you know?
Yeah, and I remember a certain someone left a guide explaining all the route system, and even complained that, oh, this one choice is easily missable if you don't fulfill all those criteria exactly. And it just so happens if you fulfill those kind of innocent criteria in some aspects, then the protagonist himself gets a revelation, like, oh, I solved it. And you have a moment of, oh, now it all fits into into the frame, right? All the puzzle pieces together, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I'm gonna
that
go.
was quite fun.
Yes, I'll be going a bit of a tangent here. I really like when visual novels have the multiple choices and they have locks.
Yeah.
And they have one really difficult story lock. It I always love that challenge of a story creating a situation where you need to thread a needle to hit the right points to build up to this moment. It also teases me in searching up the old guides and following the paths. Nowadays, you've got like visual novel walkthrough guides where it's just, yeah, this is how you get on everyone's route. I want to see like the gameplay element where you need to look up a guide because you cannot figure out how to get this freaking ending. Those are the good old days of visual novel guide hunting.
That makes me wonder, okay? What you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Having a very, maybe not very, but an obscure condition for one specific route, one specific ending, or one specific split be a very fulfilling experience once you get it, right? And obviously you can use a guide and blah, blah, blah. But just because it's there, and if you challenge yourself not to use a guide and try to figure it out from all those choices, what are your thoughts then on endings and or choices being locked behind progression, as in amount of viewed endings?
Great. Like I mentioned, I love multiple endings. I love that feeling of progression you get. Because when you have multiple endings, it can be tricky for the player, for the reader, to feel like they're making progress instead of just going down a checklist of, okay, I got that ending, that ending, that ending. But when you add, I guess you could say, gates that require you to see certain endings, it feels like you're making progress along the path. You're getting the best of both worlds, where you have the freedom to see how the story develops at your fingertips. But on the other hand, you feel like you're building towards something, like, the literary product should lead you to a grand ending or the golden ending or whatnot.
Yeah, and this title specifically made me think, how many of those should be gated? Because the very first ending I had was quite revealing. Let's leave it at that. Quite revealing, and it influenced my appreciation of other endings. So I just wonder, percentage-wise, I just don't know. Is it in order of importance, or it's just very curious, because I did stumble upon an ending that recontextualized others, which I didn't yet read.
Exactly.
So I didn't have that aha moment because I already knew what they were bidding upon.
That's always the trade-off you make with multiple endings, is that sometimes you have an ending that recontextualizes scenes in the visual novel, in the common route, in the other endings and whatnot. And so that's always the trade-off you have to make, is that when should we pull this rabbit out of the hat and give the reader this information? When should we keep them in the dark? If you have a linear style of storytelling, then you can control that and you can fit your vision. But if you want to give the player options, if you want to let them explore at their own pace, then some people are going to view your story in different lights than from what other people would. I think that's a good trade-off. In fact, I think that helps foster a community of people sharing their ideas of what they thought during some points. And they can talk about it with their friends or online or whatnot. But it is a tricky line to thread. Sometimes it's for the worse, so that's risky. But I think Man Demon did it well. I think knowing that information that you did from that one certain ending gives more appreciation to these parts, because it's like, aha, I'm in the know about this, right?
Yes, you just said it perfectly. I was going to say that. Yes, I felt like, oh, haha, I see what you were going to do, but I already know it, right? Which doesn't give that aha moment if you were to retroactively have a recontextualization. Instead, you were like, oh, I see how you tried to misguide me. If only I didn't know what I know. Right? So, yeah, you are right. And on the topic of those logs based upon ending completion, whether or not they should be, and what's the quote-unquote optimal way of experiencing VN, do you think this gave rise to the popularity of people sharing their optimal routes order?
Maybe. I've always been a fan of that too, of optimal route order for the best way, quote unquote, to finish a VN, especially plot-focused ones like mysteries. Moeges are a different beast entirely. It's just, pick whichever heroines you like. But even then, those still have a recommended route order in case some of them are particularly good or particularly bad, and you want to pace out the reader's enjoyment over the entire VN as a whole. What do you think, Amar? What are your thoughts about, as a whole?
I seem to remember that you told me that you tend to at least look up or read about recommended route orders, and I never do that. Never ever. And I'd rather piece endings together my way to the best I can. Obviously, locks notwithstanding. If they are any, then I'm forced to respect them. And I just like that way, right? And whether or not that diminishes my appreciation, it's up to you, up to me ultimately, right? I understand that there is a risk that maybe author didn't intend this particular order for the user to experience those particular titles, but I just like to piece the order myself. Now, in the past, I run into a lot of troubles with certain VNs that do have locks on that aspect, and I believe I talked about it with Hello Lady, which presents with 4 heroines, out of which initially only 2 routes are open, yet you can fight for affection for all 4 of them, essentially putting you into a bad end scenario if you aim at the locked heroine, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. At the very least, Man Demon handles it really nicely. I give it credit.
Before I forget, there are some other flaws I had with Man Demon. This isn't just glowing praise episode entirely. It could be better. Like you said, there are several plot points that I think are brushed over that really should have gotten more attention to detail, more examples, more plot beats. Oh well. Like I mentioned, it's also originally written in Chinese, I believe. The translation is not ideal. There's a few typos and grammatically incorrect parts. One of the annoying things is that every so often one character is referred to as the wrong pronoun. And it's like, okay, she's obviously a girl, and every so often you see he, and it's like, okay, seriously?
Yeah.
It's annoying. It's no deal breaker, you know. But the translation being is what it is feels more disappointing to me because Man Demon has such incredible style. If it got a translation that really reflected its dreary, its confusing, its almost mystical atmosphere, this is the sort of thing where a good translation is just good, it gets the job done, but a great translation would have been phenomenal. It really would have added so much to the title, and it's like, okay, well, I'm sad that it didn't. Oh.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially, I feared when I saw first couple of scenes, I saw that, okay, I recognize they are kind of animated, and my biggest exposure to the live 2D style of animation was, oh no, will it be as animated as Necopara? Because maybe that wouldn't suit it. But no, it was very, very tactful, very tame, and it fit that desperate or desolate atmosphere they were going for. That just felt perfect.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of live 2D, just enough to where the characters feel like they have some life in them.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It wasn't an overpowering, overly animated.
No, this approach. Is no Necopara.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts you had about this, MR?
Please read it. So all of our listeners, please read it. It's very cheap. Very cool for what it does. And I wish Tauros allowed me to talk about spoilers, but alas, he forbade me.
Don't pin the blame on me.
But it was you.
Oh, I can't believe you do this to me. You know what? I'm going to get the jump. I'm going to spoil it ahead of you. I'm going to tell you all right now. The butler did it. There is no butler. You all are safe.
There is no butler. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So, yeah.
Then on that note, I think now's a good time to wrap it up. This Readport has been a special one. We wound up only talking about one title, and it's something that the both of us have read. So I'm glad we really got to bounce back and forth, share our thoughts, share our experiences to all you readers. And again, I would recommend it. I suggest you check it out.
Yeah, and like Tauros said, this was a very special that we focus on one episode, and we hear often from our listeners that they would like an episode focused on a title. So here it is. But don't worry, for those of you who like the general topic, surely next week we'll return with shapes in VNs, so you can listen all about trapezoids, squares, and circles in VNs. General topic, as we always love to say. And with that, thank you for listening. VNture out.
VNture out.